So the only degree, the only actual academic qualification that Charles Darwin ever got was a degree in theology from Cambridge University. To be fair, he was interested in it. He was particularly interested in the studies under the Reverend William Paley, the author of the well-known book Natural Theology. You may not have heard the title of the book, but you will probably have heard of Paley's famous watchmaker illustration, in which he says that if he came across a watch lying on the ground, he would not suppose that the watch had got there by chance. He would suppose that it had been designed by a watchmaker. Now, although that's a well-known illustration and one that I've used in talks myself, the whole subject of the Natural Theology book is that you can prove God and the nature of God without reference to the Bible. So the main theological influence on Charles Darwin at Cambridge University was this idea that you didn't need the Bible in order to have theology. So there again we see another influence on Darwin. His geological studies that he'd started on the side in Edinburgh continued, particularly as he picked up Charles Lyell's book, the first volume of his book, Principles of Geology, which really influenced him. He took that book with him on his famous voyage on the Beagle, and he arranged for the second volume to be sent to him. It arrived in port at Montevideo, so that Darwin was able to pick up that and read all about Lyell's views on the supposed millions of years of development of the rocks. And so by the time Darwin and the Beagle had sailed all the way around South America on their very slow, painstaking voyage, which was really concerned with navigation and finding out soundings to produce maps, by the time they reached the Galapagos and Darwin saw his famous finches and tortoises and so on, Darwin was already convinced of long ages in the rocks of millions of years, and his journals bear that out. So again we see that the influences on Darwin were not biblical Christianity, were not the concept that the Bible was true. So to summarize, was Charles Darwin a biblical Christian who rejected those views when he saw the finches and other animals at the Galapagos? No. He had an atheist but notionally Anglican father. He had a Unitarian mother. He had a Unitarian grammar school education. He had two grandfathers who were atheists and Jacobin revolutionaries, one grandfather of which had actually written a book giving a theory of evolution. His only theological influence, or his main theological influence, came from a man who believed you could prove the nature of God without reference to the Bible. And during the preparations and the early stages of the voyage on the Beagle, he was thoroughly influenced by the millions of years of geology ideas of Charles Lyell. Biblical Christianity being rejected at the Galapagos? Far from it. Darwin was already in a place where his views had already been formed before he ever saw his first Galapagos finch.